Ever get that prickly feeling on the back of your neck while you're out on the porch sipping some iced tea, watching the afternoon light cut through the live oaks? That slow, quiet kind of moment where the yard feels almost too still, like something's paying attention to you? Well, I'm here to tell you, you're right. There is a bird in your yard right now that knows exactly who you are. And I don't mean that in some loose, poetic kind of way. I mean it in a real, documented, scientifically observed way that's going to make you look at your backyard completely different from here on out. I'm not talking about some vague animal instinct or the way a dog perks up when a stranger walks up the driveway. I'm talking about a bird. Maybe one you've seen 100 times and barely given a second thought, that has been studying your face, not your silhouette, not the general shape of a human being, but you, specifically, the way you walk, the time you come outside, what you're carrying when you do, whether you move slow and easy or quick and tense. It has been building a picture of you, little by little, every single day you've stepped out into that Florida heat. And depending on what it's decided about you, because make no mistake, it has made a decision. It might be reacting to your presence right now as you watch this video. Welcome back to Backyard Bird Mind. If you're new around here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now, because what we talk about on this channel is going to permanently change the way you see every feathered visitor that comes through your yard. Today, we're going deep into 8 signs that the birds around your home have been studying you, what conclusions they've drawn, and what kind of relationship has been quietly forming just outside your back door, whether you knew it or not. And stick around, because sign number 6 is something that researchers genuinely did not think was possible until it started showing up in the data. And sign number 8, well, that one's less about science and more about something most of us have already felt but never had the words for. Let's get into it. You know that feeling when you haven't even grabbed the birdseed yet? You haven't opened the screen door, haven't made a sound, haven't done a single thing to announce yourself, but you glance out the kitchen window, and there they are. Maybe a pair of Carolina chickadees already waiting on the branch closest to the feeder, a tufted titmouse tilting its head toward the back of the house, or that big, bright red cardinal, the male, bold as anything, perched right at the edge of the yard, with his eyes pointed at your back door, like he's been expecting you. Most folks write that off as coincidence, a lucky moment. But it ain't coincidence, and the research backs that up hard. Studies out of Cambridge and Cornell's Lab of Ornithology show that common backyard birds develop what scientists call anticipatory behavior towards specific humans. They don't just recognize you when they see you. They build a mental model of your schedule. They track the relationship between your appearance and what happens next. Food showing up, safety, routine. In one study, crows anticipated a familiar caretaker's arrival up to 12 minutes before she even came into view. They repositioned themselves. They called to each other in a specific pattern, different from how they called for anything else. They were ready for her. If your birds are already oriented toward your yard before you've done a single thing to draw them in, that's not luck. That's memory. That's recognition. You have become a fixed point in the way they understand their world. Now, here's one worth paying attention to next time the UPS driver cuts through your yard or a neighbor wanders over to chat by the fence. Watch the birds. 9 times out of 10, they'll pull back, go dead quiet, and stay gone for several minutes after that stranger leaves. But when you come out, if you've been consistent, if you've been calm, if you've shown up day after day without doing anything to spook them, they often just stay. Maybe they shift to a slightly higher branch, give you a quick look, and go right back to eating like you're just part of the scenery. That distinction isn't about your smell or the sound of your footsteps. it's entirely visual. A landmark study used researchers wearing two different masks, one that the crows had been exposed to during a stressful capture event, and one that was neutral. Years later, those same crows and their offspring, who had never personally interacted with the researcher, still responded with alarm to that specific face. The memory of a dangerous human had spread through the whole local population. Now, flip that around. If the birds in your yard hold their ground when you walk out but scatter for everyone else, you've been vetted. You've been filed under safe. That is not a small thing. Here's one that's subtle, but once you see it, it'll stick with you. Next time you're out on the porch or standing by the feeder, watch a bird, a nuthatch creeping down the bark, a goldfinch working the seed, and wait. At some point, it'll stop. It'll turn its head and look directly at you. Not a nervous scan for hawks overhead, a slow, deliberate focus, one eye trained right on your face. Because birds have eyes positioned on the sides of their heads, looking directly at something requires an intentional turn. It's called investigative orientation, and it means the bird is actively registering you. It's especially common when something about you has changed, a new hat, a different jacket, moving through a part of the yard you don't usually go. They notice. That little creature that weighs less than a handful of change is looking you in the eye and taking notes. Real quick, before we get to the next sign, drop a comment right now and tell me what city you're watching from. Seriously, I want to know where you all are tuning in from. Whether you're right here in Florida, up in Georgia, out west, wherever you are, drop your city in the comments. I read every single one, and it always blows my mind how far this community reaches. Now, let's keep going. Try this next time you're out doing some yard work or just walking to the mailbox. Move through your yard on a slow, deliberate path. If the birds have learned you, they'll reorient as you go. A cardinal facing east will turn to keep you in his line of sight as you drift west. A mockingbird on the fence will shift its posture, tracking your movement without flying off. It looks almost casual, but it's not. This is called subject tracking, and birds do it for two categories of beings: threats and known individuals who matter. Predators get tracked for obvious survival reasons, but familiar, trusted humans get tracked too, because your behavior is still information. Where you're going, what you're carrying, whether today feels like a normal day or something's different, you are on a mental watch list. And in crows, researchers have observed individuals simultaneously tracking up to 4 specific humans at once, updating their behavioral predictions in real time. Now, here's where it starts to get genuinely wild. If one bird in your yard has decided you're trustworthy, what researchers call the seed king effect, where one individual is associated with reliable food and safety, that information does not stay with one bird. It spreads. Juvenile birds watch the adults. If the grown birds don't react with alarm when you come outside, the young ones learn you're okay without ever needing a bad experience of their own to teach them. They inherit your reputation. And it goes across species lines too. Chickadees use highly specific alarm calls that encode information about a threat, the size, the speed, the danger level. If a chickadee sees you and responds with calm, quiet contact calls instead of a sharp alarm, every nuthatch and titmouse and Carolina wren in earshot receives that information. Your reputation isn't just held by one bird. It's a distributed endorsement shared across an entire neighborhood network of different species who are all listening to each other all the time. Now you'll have probably heard that crows are smart. Tool use. Problem solving, remembering faces. That's all well documented. But long-term observations at feeding stations turned up something that genuinely surprised researchers: crows leaving objects, not dropping things by accident, deliberately placing items, pebbles, small pieces of bark, shiny bits, buttons, at the specific spot where a trusted person regularly provided food. In one well-documented case, a woman who had been feeding a local crow population for years began finding small objects placed at the exact location where she filled the feeders. It wasn't random scatter. It was placed, intentional, specific to her. Now, whether that constitutes a gift in any sense that maps to human emotion is something scientists are careful about. But the behavior itself, intentional, location-specific, directed at one particular individual, is hard to explain any other way. If you've ever found a small stone sitting on your porch railing that wasn't there yesterday, or a twig placed somewhere it couldn't have blown to, don't brush it off too fast. You can test this one tomorrow morning without any equipment at all. Just listen. Birds have two broad categories of sound in the presence of humans: alarm calls, which are sharp and urgent and tell everyone within earshot that something dangerous is nearby, and contact calls, which are soft and conversational, the kind of low-key chip notes and quiet chirps that mean life is proceeding normally. If a bird doesn't know you or has decided you're a potential threat, you'll hear those sharp warning sounds the moment you step outside. The yard goes tense. But in a yard where the human is familiar and trusted, those alarms fade into the background. What you hear instead is just the ordinary sound of birds going about their morning. Soft calls, easy movement, the mockingbird doing its thing in the top of the magnolia, like you aren't even a variable worth accounting for. Some birds even produce what researchers describe as appeasement vocalizations, sounds they normally reserve for communication with their own kind, signaling that there's no conflict here, no threat, everything is fine. That soundscape is their verdict on your character, and it's one of the most honest assessments you'll ever receive. I saved this one for last because it sits in a different category than everything else we've talked about. All of that, the anticipatory behavior, the face recognition, the reputation networks, the vocalizations, that's science. Documented, peer-reviewed, reproducible science. And it's extraordinary on its own. But for a lot of you watching this right now, the most unforgettable moment you've ever had with a bird didn't happen during a study. It happened when you were hurting. Maybe you'd just lost someone. Maybe you were standing by the window in a house that felt way too quiet, or sitting out on the porch trying to hold yourself together. And a bird came. Most often people say it was a northern cardinal, and it didn't just fly through, it stayed. It looked at you, and something passed between you that you have never been able to fully explain or fully let go of. Science hasn't ruled that out. It just hasn't finished asking the right questions yet. But in American culture, and especially here in the South, the belief that a cardinal carries something forward from a loved one who's passed is one of the most deeply and widely held spiritual traditions there is. That vivid red, standing out against a grey winter sky or a green Florida summer afternoon, has come to mean something that goes beyond ornithology. It's not superstition. It's a feeling so consistent, so widely shared across so many different people and places that it became its own tradition through sheer repetition of experience. If you've felt it, you know what I'm talking about. And the one thing science can say with absolute certainty is this: the bird knows you are there. It sees you. Whatever else you believe about what that means, the bird is not indifferent. You are known. So, next time that cardinal lands on your fence post and holds your gaze for just a second longer than seems necessary, don't rush to explain it away. Don't file it under coincidence and move on. Let it be what it is. Because to that bird, you are not a random shape in the landscape. You are a known quantity, a neighbor. A familiar presence in a world that is constantly asking every living thing to make decisions about what is safe and what is not. And that bird has decided you're worth staying close to. I want to hear from y'all. Has a bird ever come to you in a moment that felt like more than coincidence? A visit that stopped you cold and stayed with you? Tell me about it in the comments. What bird was it? And what was happening in your life at the time? Every one of those stories matters, and this community is full of people who will understand exactly what you mean. If this video made you think of someone, share it with them. Sometimes the right words land at exactly the right moment. Thanks for spending some time with me here at Backyard Bird Mind. I'll see y'all in the next one.